going?
It's going good. How about you?
Good. I was glad I got a chance to read over your action plans and to look a little bit more deeply at some of this stuff. I think for the start of fractions, this is not a bad place to be in. Because this is, they do fractions in 4th grade, but not to the extent. So I think this is a good step forward into this. So if you're disappointed at all with where kids are right now, I think it's normal and or maybe even probably ahead of where we were last year. So I don't want you to be stressed at all if you're not feeling like they're where they need to be. Do you want to tell me some of the headlines that you're noticing? Here it's kind of a standard by standard breakdown. Do you want to talk me through the headlines of what you're seeing?
Yeah. Well, as far as division goes, kids are still having a lot of trouble connecting partial quotients and whole number division and getting that down, and then progressing on to decimal division. So we haven't focused on that as much as I'd like to within the regular classroom or found time for a review of that. So I'm really excited to have some, to be moving toward more purposeful, targeted use of the Math 2 time with some of the iReady stuff, and as well as some other kind of review videos. A lot of those problems were pretty hard too because they weren't just whole number division, they also required them to subtract something out first, on the interim at least. But they're still having trouble with division.
Do you have the item by item analysis? I wasn't sure how to get that, but if you have it up, because it's interesting, the division problems, it seems like there are 2 or 3 that were, here's a whole number in the thousands, there's a change to the starting quantity, and then you divide. And then there are problems looking at, I think it was 15. I was curious to see the split of how kids did on the whole numbers versus one like 15.
So, yeah, I grouped those just slightly differently, and I'm looking at problems. So I grouped in 14, 15, and 16, which these were one-step division problems, but one of them was decimal division. The other one, I think, was dividing a whole number. It was 15, the one that you were talking about was 49 divided by 5 equals, 9.8? Or anyway. And then the last one was, I think, dividing by, that was the problem that was 14 times, or sorry, if they had $15.20 and earrings
That was
cost
the
something.
estimation one.
Yeah. So on 15, we scored 20%. Whereas a lot of the multi-step ones, they scored higher.
So the thing that struck me about 15, which I think is similar to, when you think about division of decimals as a standard, it's not really a fluency standard until 6th grade. I saw some sample items on Park with dividing decimals that were harder than I've seen for what I would expect. The 49 divided by 5 looks more in line with what I've seen for 5th grade.
Yeah.
So the thing that struck me there is there's the reteaching of division, which iReady is going to hopefully fix up for us. But there's also that piece of knowing how to check yourself. Because on a problem like that, if no kid knows the division to do, every kid could still get that right using addition.
Yeah.
But they need that wherewithal to start associating the two a little bit more. And so in the action plan, it said that it's going to be a combo of iReady. But then I think in the video lessons, there's a good spot for you to show problems like that and say, here's what little Johnny did. Little Johnny used addition. Ooh, wasn't even, I'll tell you a secret, he wasn't even sure what to do, but he realized that he could figure out the answer with addition.
Mm-hmm.
This person used multiplication. And even with the addition, also to show examples of addition with branching or with making strategic groups. So there was a big jump from this class, the 6th grade class. A lot of them made a lot of headway last year with repeated addition, which sounds silly because that's something they should be doing in 2nd grade. But we had a question like this on the interim, this same interim last year, and it was something about a TV costs $118 and you're getting this much per month. And it's something that adults look at and say, oh, you should divide, and kids look at it and say, well, how do I figure out month after month how much I'm getting? And they see addition. And, but I was shocked at how many of my kids couldn't accurately do that repeated addition because they were trying to do it all at once.
Right.
Versus when kids were like, okay, branching, or if I take, it's like $7.50 plus $7.50 to get 15.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I do 15 plus 15, that would actually be 4 sets, so that'd be $30. And if I did 30 plus 30, that would actually be 8 sets of that number. And so it's a cool way. Like Elisa Chavez is one of the top performers in 6th grade, and she still does that.
Really?
And
Cool.
she consistently is in the top 3 on like every assessment we give. But she's just organized about it, and she knows how to use, she knows which strategies work for her. So I think when you do those reteach videos, just make sure that, like, you don't want to make them the longest videos ever,
Right.
but even to flash those strategies, kids will start to catch on that there are different ways to think about those.
These were the slides that I had to work on something like that. Whole numbers just divided by, and that leaves a lot of room for different problems. And they're pretty simple, so it shouldn't be like a long video to show a couple different strategies.
Yeah, those are absolutely perfect for it.
Okay, cool. When it's time to just start plussing, even that can be a little confusing.
You know. Well, it's funny, like my advice for division is to give them effective strategies 2+, so that they at least do that a little bit better.
So that, I think that that's one thing that I'm really excited about, the iReady videos, and to get kids like going over those and then retaking some of the knowledge quizzes to get a better pulse on how they're doing on division. That's like an easy like opportunity that hasn't really been worked in. So the iReady lessons that we're going to start with, though, are focused on fractions. The first
Great.
5, I just wanted to, like, since we're still sticking with fractions, and that, just to like build that momentum and build a little quick foundation, and then once they finish those first 5, or if a couple of people finish early, then shift over to the division lessons. There's less division lessons, so like they could get through 5 and then do 3 more and have like a pretty solid footing if they're doing well on those.
Yeah.
So, like, those are the lessons that we're going to start with on iReady. Would be the fractions ones, just because that's what we're working on in the regular classroom. So
Take as much time for fractions as you need. It's the hardest part of 5th grade, and
it's a doozy.
it is. I mean, we spent all of November, December, January, February on fractions, and then anyone who wasn't projected to pass, when, you know, with the higher kids, we started doing graphing and shapes, they were with Miss Ming doing fractions.
Gotcha.
And it's just, it's so hard for kids.
Yeah.
And so like and it's so important, it just shouldn't be rushed if they're not ready.
Yeah.
One thing I also noticed with the exam is that part of the 5th grade standards with fractions are having kids identify like the whole when it's not explicitly stated, which is kind of a soft skill with fractions that will never be a SWOBAT, but is something that kids may need explicit coaching on. So you can do that in your videos, but in a problem where, you know, Bodhi has a gallon of ice cream, he ate 1/3 of it on Monday, and then he ate 1/4 of it on Tuesday,
Oh, that one.
kids
yeah.
might be tempted to say, oh, it's 1/3 minus 1/4.
Mhm.
And really they have to figure out how to represent, they have to identify that the gallon is the whole,
Mhm.
and then they have to think through, how do I represent one whole, and really see that it's one whole minus 1/3 minus 1/4.
Yeah.
But those problems where there's no numeric value assigned to like the whole are
Yeah.
pretty challenging.
Yeah.
And I don't see that in the assessment, so you're gonna have to get your own data on that.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good thing to know. I did notice that in the interim and in a lot of the Engage New York questions, there were a couple of those challenging ones. Like, I think in the sample one, it was they spent 1/4 of their money on something, and then they saved 1/7 of their money. How much do they have in their pocket?
Yeah, and so you're like, oh,
1/4 plus 1/7, or 1/4 minus 1/7.
right. And it's funny, you wouldn't expect, like, even the higher kids, that, what do you call one whole? Like, what is 1 minus 1/4?
Mhm.
Of course, we're like, fourths.
Yeah.
But when they actually go to do that math, the fact that they're looking at a whole number will pick them up.
Mhm.
And hopefully they just know kind of the complementary fraction that makes the whole, but,
Yeah. The mighty one,
right.
or the mighty two.
But some of them are gonna need that reality check.
Mhm.
So, and so this is your remastery.
Yeah, so this was like a very, every video has three like problem slides.
Awesome.
For instance, and I didn't want them to take a long time, so I didn't have like a lot of review or common mistakes. I just wanted to weave those into what I talked about when I went over it. So these are the ones that were like subtract and divide. So I think that this will just help them like frame it and know that like, okay, we're looking at a two-step problem here. So when we look at a couple, these are, pretty much modeled very similarly to what the interim was. But I also wanted to use some that weren't necessarily money ones. I think most of the ones that were on the interim were money ones, except for one that was like packaging up a super pack of something. Do you think it's a good idea to lead with this one, or to just jump right in with questions like these?
I guess my only push is like, go back to the title slide. If the title's multi-step word problem, subtraction, and long division,
Gives
you're,
away.
if I were a kid, I wouldn't even read the problem. I would look for the numbers and subtract, and then
Yeah.
subtract the two numbers that look like, oh, those are the two numbers in the hundreds. Those are going to be our subtract numbers and divide. If there's a way to slightly alter it to multi-step word problems involving division,
Okay.
where it's not a giveaway,
Yeah.
I think that will be more effective, because if what you're hoping is that they'll start to make internalizations about like when it's appropriate to subtract, they're not going to because they don't
Yeah.
have to.
Would you recommend like maybe making this one a different operation in there? Or,
Yeah. That's easy. And then, great.
I could also make one of these an addition problem, or addition, and then
I
divide.
think that would help,
Okay.
just so they don't get stuck in a, I think it'll also, so in that first one, like you guys haven't officially done order of operations, right?
No.
And so they've gotten some kind of soft exposure to parentheses and expressions and dot talks and things like this. And those would be nice examples. Don't worry if you don't understand the expression that I wrote, that this is like kind of the math problem that the student's seen in their head. Let's solve.
Okay.
Yeah. emailed Bob Burke today, the math contest
Oh,
guy.
yeah.
So I think we're gonna do like the old style math competition, but host it at one of the first schools. So
Oh,
have
cool.
him, like use his question sets and have him run it,
Oh, neat.
but us host it. And so hopefully it'll be 4th and 5th grade. And you and Drew can put together a little all-star team.
Cool. That sounds exciting. I tried to, like, if they didn't know what a loan was, to make it clear that they're gonna, like, at least give them the idea that they're gonna have to add that.
And when do you envision having opportunities to reassess outside of the iReady?
So, the remastery assessment, I think, in early February, after they've had a chance to digest.
Is that the one that Samaj sent out?
Did Samaj send one out? She sent one out for the
Kyle
first.
sent one out.
Kyle, I thought Kyle asked about it.
I didn't read Kyle's email.
Yeah, I
But
think.
Samaj has had one specifically to me, so it's like, oh, I have to read this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Kyle sent out one asking if we all wanted to give the same one. He felt like that
Mhm.
was a positive thing.
Right.
I think it was like, has anybody made this yet? Kind of, I don't want to make it if somebody already has, so. Yeah, so I'm not sure if it's out there, but it can,
Okay.
can be made. The Unit 3 assessment next Friday is going to give a little more like finer, I think it'll help me get a finer grain on what they're doing on fractions, because with the interim, it was kind of like can you achieve to this high level? I didn't know like kind of any of these in between sort of like mid-level skills yet that we've been working really hard on.
Do you have that interim, or do you have that unit test?
No.
When you have it, will you send it to me?
Okay, that's it to do this weekend, definitely.
I can also let you know what we've given in the past.
Please.
I think it will be important to get a mixture of problem types and also
Yeah.
ones that ask kids to choose an appropriate model, because I didn't see a lot of that in the interim either. And I know the question banks that Samaj is pulling from don't have a lot of visuals, but I know places that do.
And it's good to know if they can do that.
Yeah, because it's interesting, kids. I think part of why this is so challenging is they're kind of analyzing the word problem and then going straight to symbolic. But there's that other level of like, could they look at different models and think, how many parts is the whole split up into? Like, what model makes sense for this problem?
Yeah.
And it's the type of thing that I see Park and Common Core aiming for that is still a little bit of a growth area for us. But I can get you good items
Please.
on that.
That'd be super helpful.
Yeah.
And then, so remastery, the Unit 3 one, and then division is gonna, like, they need to retake some knowledge quizzes. So probably around the time when grade cards are gonna come out, I'm gonna make sure that anybody who needs to retake old knowledge quizzes has. But I'm also gonna try to push more heavily for kids to retake knowledge quizzes and make sure that they know I have not passed. And that's helpful because the bulletin boards are out there. So they'll have a better pulse of, I have passed this or I have not passed. So I need to go retake it. I need to come in. I think maybe like one day a week during enrichment time might be the best time for them.
And I think in terms of like, once you do that presentation with them of like, this is what's coming, I think part of them easing their anxiety is like making sure that they have enough practices in advance with knowledge quizzes, but like
Yeah.
that is the bar and they're gonna have to get there.
Yeah, I need to, I'm glad you reminded me of that because I'm trying to keep them better organized in their planners. So I have an important date section on the whiteboard that I started before break. So just like setting some dates for these, putting them up there so that they see. I didn't get to like the second part on that. I didn't know how important those were in terms of like.
I think if you put in the Unit 3 assessment,
Okay.
because my thing is, this has been my issue with, not my issue with action plans in the past, because I've never thought of a different way to do them. But the reason that I think that iReady is going to be more strategic is I just rarely see this getting implemented that well.
Yeah.
Or by the time you look ahead to what you planned on January 20th,
Yeah.
you're going to realize that kids are really struggling with multiplying and dividing fractions, and then you're going to have to go back through that.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what's awesome? Bridges in math. I've sent you some of their stuff.
I think so, but I think that you were wondering, like, oh, is it still like an open login or?
Yeah, but they have really great visuals. Let me.
Do you have any tips for writing the horizontal bar? Never mind, I think I mentioned this yesterday, and it's pretty much just Jing. It's the best way to go.
If you're doing, because you can do it in Google Docs, but you can't do it
In the slides, yeah.
unless, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, that's all right. But I also wanted to mention for reassessment, so the past 3 knowledge quizzes were all division, they need to retake those. But also the upcoming knowledge quizzes are going to be on some fractions targets, like just making sure that they can do equivalent fractions.
Good.
I think that this last one in the series, 15, is going to be addition and subtraction, so that'll be another chance.
And that'll be good, because they should be able, I mean, not that it's going to be easy, but they should be able to do those a little bit more,
Yeah.
more fluency. So,
Oh, look at that. Did you, was that the parent thing that you had sent out before?
I think that was the home connections.
Okay, yeah, that was cool.
It is, and it's just, it looks friendlier.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what kids who are struggling
Right.
need is something structured like that. It looks a lot friendlier than Engage New York.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. They also have nice games. Their division is really good.
Mm.
So, yeah, incorporating models like this. And they do a great job when they do have problems of doing realistic pictures. I forget if it goes down to division here. Sorry that I'm a little bit scattered on this. Oh, where is the dividing fractions?
I like that folder.
Task favorites. Okay.
There.
Here it is. And so they have a lot of great visuals.
Yeah.
Where I might ask them to write a problem that matches this.
Okay.
And maybe it'll be a multiplication problem about 12 sets of 1.5 mile, or if you walk a half mile each hour, how many hours would it take you to go 6 miles? And those are nice because they just force you to engage with the context a little bit more and to think about why each mile is being broken up.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll give different representations as well. And I showed you the card sorts, right?
Were those the ones for multiplication fluency?
Mm, I did these with kids last year. Because once they get into multiplying and dividing, there are going to be a bunch of situations where, like, it's just about to get really crazy.
Yeah.
Because they're already grappling with addition and subtraction, and then multiplying and dividing. To say, like, you had 3 scoops of ice cream and you ate half a scoop is much different than saying you had 3 scoops of ice cream and you ate half of the ice cream.
Yeah.
And they just sound almost the same. And so you really want kids to be looking at them side by side. This might, card source, that's why.
Oh, cool.
And so they're problems, and then they're just cut up into cards and put in an envelope. And so they're all fraction ones. And so it makes them really think about which model goes with the problem, and they're all very similar. And then what is the question actually asking? Because how much will each friend get doesn't match their 24 servings. And I usually put in some extras just to see where they go. But you can see how these problems are all almost identical for kids.
Yeah. Crazy
Right?
indeed. Yeah.
And it was nice because kids really had to grapple with this stuff. And this was good. Things like 2/5 times 4, 2/4 times 5, really pushed them to think about how many pieces the whole is divided into, how many sets you have.
Cool.
So I'm a big fan of doing things like this.
Yeah.
Some are more basic than others.
Those are very cool.
Yeah. I feel like I have another. Oh, this one was fun. This one was really hard for them. And so here, yeah, they really struggled with these. But they're nice because they really make you.
And those are linear models too, which our kids have mostly just seen the area model. So that's good to expose them to the linear one as well.
And this one was good because this was 2.5. It looks like it's going to be the same,
Yeah.
but they need to really make sure that they're focusing on identifying how many pieces the part is, or the whole is cut into. So I can send you those, but they're a nice way to get them comparing. And also, some of these could be multiplication, they could be addition. It's really, there are a lot of different ways to think about them. But you'll tie in more visuals.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm excited for third grade.
Me too. I just want to get them on the videos and get to the get used to making them myself, so that I'm in a good rhythm with that, because that's been like a whole shift in workflow. And then also being able to envision stuff like this happening in the small group time. And especially once we get rolling with that and they can work super independently and don't need both teachers monitoring. The structure's built out, then we can have 2 teachers running the small groups at the same time and have everybody else on the computers for the whole day.
It seems like you are setting up Sarah really well.
I hope so.
She's still in Ole Miss and UNO.
Yes.
Okay. And then just Joe in Stanford.
Yeah.
And Claudia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're there, like Claudia is there for like the last 40 minutes and Joe's there for like the first 40, but they're there for most of the time. So yeah, I think definitely as early as after the Unit 3 tests. Give them like these last 2 days and then 3 lessons next week and then a test to like get that. I think that we should be in a spot where we can at least free up one teacher to start doing small group.
Yeah.
And with Sarah, I know that it's going to be hard just because she's got like a big learning curve in this like first year in school kind of thing. So I thought that it maybe the best thing to do would be to do 3 days myself, and then 1 day with her, and then I'm still, or 1 day where she leads a small group.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm still like monitoring the kids with the computers and maybe like peeking in on her group to make sure that they're,
Mm-hmm.
doing the right thing.
Great.
And give her a little feedback too, so that I can
She
utilize
seems
her
more
better.
open to it, or she just seems like a worker.
Yeah,
I like her.
yeah. I'm thankful that she was there to help with a few things the last couple days.
Yeah. So do you know how to collect reports on iReady?
No, can
This
I?
will be a good thing for us
Yeah.
to go through.
I'm glad that I'm getting a second to think about some of these things.
So if you log into iReady, and might shut this off, just because they can give me feedback on
Sure.